Hi, welcome back to the channel. This is a very special extended episode of Heartbeats and Horsepower, one that I've been looking forward to for a little while now. This is where we sit down with Dave, and not only are we going to talk about his awesome, beautiful Ducati Panigale V4 SP, but we're going to talk about Dave's journey through his biking life, how he ended up getting to the stage where he's on such an exotic machine. We'll talk about MotoGP, we'll talk about bike technology, bike licenses, we'll even talk about the weather because we're British. So a very casual, pretty much unedited conversation between two guys about bikes. So get settled in and enjoy the video. And just for the record, those clothes are not mine. Right, we're on then, Dave. So, yeah, I've been looking forward to this, mate.
Me too.
Really looking forward to it. And I think partly because, I'll introduce the video in a second actually, but partly because I feel quite invested in you ending up with this bike.
Yeah.
And I think reading between the lines, that means I helped you spend a lot of money.
Yeah, too much.
Yeah. I'm quite good at helping other people spend money. Dino will back that
Yeah,
up.
he definitely will.
Yeah. So maybe for the ladies and the gentlemen, if you want help spending some money, I'm your man. But yeah, so yeah, let me introduce the video actually. So this is, I've been looking forward to this, and the Ducati Panigale V4 SP that Dave has bought, there's a little bit of a story behind this actually. But the idea is to do an episode of Heartbeats and Horsepower that is an extended version, a little bit special, obviously, because this is a special bike. And this is actually part one, because A, you haven't ridden it yet. and when the weather gets better, actually, and you've had some time in the saddle, you'll be able to share your thoughts. And Dave has kindly offered to let me have a ride. So we'll be able to maybe compare notes.
Definitely.
And that's what I was on about when I did the teaser video a couple of weeks back. I said I was actually quite nervous.
You and me both.
Yeah. I mean, just look at that face. It's quite intimidating, isn't it? We were saying off camera that if that pulls up behind you in your rear view mirror, that's quite scary.
Especially in black, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's definitely an aggressive looking bike, and it is beautiful. You know, the matte paint, and we were chatting about even the wings. And anybody that follows the channel will know that I've really slagged off wings, but they don't stand out. They don't stick out too much. You know, they don't look like an afterthought.
And like we said, they're not as pronounced as on the latest V4 or V4R, which are significantly wider, and just sort of, because the way that they're almost molded into the nose cone, you notice them even more. So I agree with you on that.
No, I actually like them on this bike. I really do. And yeah, so this video, I guess, is the aim really is just to talk about how Dave got to this bike and his journey through biking. We'll talk about his Panigale 959. There's a story there as well, a couple of stories actually. And yeah, so completely unscripted and just a casual conversation between two blokes about bikes. Unfortunately, the sound engineer phoned in sick this morning, so we're in an echoey garage. So I'll try and do something in the edit with that. And the makeup artist has made us look like two middle-aged men. Would you believe it?
Yeah, I'm 21.
Happy days. So Dave, before we actually talk about this beautiful machine, and when I did the teaser video, I don't know whether I've misled people a little bit, because I described this as really rare and really exotic? Because I think it is, because you don't see many around, and you probably won't see many at bike meets either.
Well,
would you say it's rare and exotic?
That is a major reason why it's sitting here right now, because that's one of the things that drew me to it. And, it's not a limited edition; it is a numbered edition, but there is a difference. So if they bring out a Superleggera, let's say, they'll probably make 500 of them. I don't know what the number is, whatever the number is. Same with the various special editions. These are numbered, but they're not limited. They number them, but it's probably, I think, about 1,500. I'm guessing, maybe something like that.
I guess it helps to make you feel a little bit special, doesn't it? When you look down at the yoke and you see, number 1 or number 7 of etc. It does make you feel a little bit special. But where did it all begin for you then, Dave? So way back before the SP, how did you get into biking?
I think my first experience on a bike was as a teenager, not far from where we are now, when a mate had his 125, he just got it, can't remember which type. He said, "Do you want to go?" I said, "Yeah." He didn't point out how to use it.
Okay.
So I went straight through a wall at about 50. And I remember the bones
through the wall.
Yeah. And the bones in my fingers were actually sticking out, and I had pins in my arm and everything. So that was my first catastrophe. There've been a few. And then a couple of years later, back in the days when you didn't have to do a theory test, you didn't have to do staggered progression, you could just do what you like. So I did my CBT, and then the same day did day 1 of training, and then did day 2 of training, then took my license, passed my license, and I got a CBR 600 as a first bike. That was the F2. I always thought it was the F3, it was actually the F2 I got first.
Yeah, because you were talking about getting another 600F as a second.
I love them. I had great bikes. They're really easy. They're kind of like a do-it-all. They're not too sporty. They're comfortable. You've even got under-seat storage to a degree. They're forgiving, but they're quick when you want them to be. They're really quick, and they're bulletproof. Well, maybe not now, but they were then. So I had the F2 for a few years. After an accident, I had to get a new one. Again, my fault. I was at a garage just off the M25 at Potter's Bar. I just finished filling up and paying. I saw like a ninja or something on the other side of the forecourt. He was just leaving. I thought, brilliant. Literally quickly put gloves on, sped out of the garage as fast as I possibly could, trying to find this thing. I was on this massive roundabout. Then I sort of suddenly realised there were traffic lights on this roundabout.
Right. Okay.
It's sort of, where it's all going in slow motion and they're red. And the car stopped. The car's going that way. I was like, shit. And so slammed on the brakes, no chance. And then just deliberately laid it down. And I slid along the ground.
Yeah.
And ended up with my head sticking out from under a car like that.
Wow.
I only broke a finger, which is actually not bad at all, given I slid for quite a while.
Yeah.
And the bike hit the car, and that was right off. Total dick move by me. But that's, young, early 20s.
I like it when... Shall we close the doors, actually, because of the noise of the rain? I don't know how that's going to affect the audio with the camera. Yeah. 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. I might edit that bit out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the studio engineer is off sick as well. So we're having to do all ourselves. I love it when I hear people talk about having a bike accident and almost immediately they say it was completely my fault. Because when you think about it, although something's happened that are beyond our control, how many bikers do you listen to that have had accidents? It wasn't my fault. This car pulled out all of a sudden. Yeah. And one thing I learned from an advanced driving course, not an advanced riding course, was that all of a sudden should never happen. No. I mean, it does, because we're human and we lose concentration and we get hyper focused on one point rather than being aware of everything that's around us. But we should always either predict or assume that something's going to happen. So they shouldn't really be all of a sudden. And I think underpinned by the philosophy from the guys running this course was that there's no such thing as an accident, and every accident is avoidable. But yeah, I like
within reason, because don't forget, your accident I don't think is avoidable. Having a deer jump out in front of you. That's a good
point. Yeah, that wasn't my fault. But not my fault.
And what I'll get to is, again,
there are exceptions.
There's another accident I had. I would say it's partly my fault in terms of where I was, but not there's other things as well. But yeah, you're right. That's what I try and tell my son, who's 18, on his 125 all the time. But he's convinced he's invincible because he's 18, and I did too. And found out I wasn't.
Yeah.
But so yeah.
And actually, the last time I was here was when I had the accident.
Yeah,
remember?
It was
because we. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but there's a video on my channel where we're servicing Dave's son's Lex Moto. Well, doing an oil change and brake pads, and it was a gorgeous day. And between here and where I live, it's a fantastic ride most of it. And literally just coming towards the end of the ride, about 20 minutes left, and I thought the last bit was a bit of dual carriageway. I thought I'll slow down, I'll just cruise on the dual carriageway. So getting onto the dual carriageway on the slip road, and you're right, I didn't even have time to hit the brakes. Like this deer bounced out of the bushes, and I just had no time to react really. But yeah, that was the last time I was here.
Yeah. I didn't want to bring
say I'm in the car today. Yeah, and because of the weather. Touching on the weather briefly, I know everyone and every biker is probably whinging about the weather right now.
Yeah.
But apparently we can blame the Scandinavians. My good lady this morning said she heard, I think it was the Met Office, say that there is bad weather like this is low pressure, isn't it? So that, or was it high pressure? Well, I think it's low pressure. So apparently there's a band of low pressure that we're suffering from that's hanging over us, and it can't move because in Scandinavia there's a band of high pressure that isn't moving. Apparently, I'm not a weather expert, but
precursor to another Viking invasion. They're just softening us up with the weather. It has been shocking. I mean, we discussed it before. I'm not going to go into lots of weather chat, but January 150% of regular rainfall.
Yeah.
February already. What are we now? The 7th. 7th. We've already had over 35% of the annual regular rainfall for February by the 7th. So,
and we were saying yesterday, weren't we? Like where I live in Wiltshire. It's rained every day of 2026. That's what, 31, that's 30. That's biblical. That's almost 40 days and 40 nights.
I should have bought an ark instead of a Ducati. Yeah, exactly. But
so the 600F then, so you had that accident.
Yeah, and then that one was an insurance write-off.
Right.
And one thing it did teach me, actually, minor point, I remember when I was extricating myself from the car, which was stationary, but I was underneath it. And I sort of got up, and the driver came out, and he was very nice and all the rest of it. But there was a baby on board thing on the back of the car, and I felt so bad. Yeah. So I thought, if I'd actually, done proper damage, it's unlikely, but it's possible.
Yeah.
And I thought, don't be such a dick. Be a little bit more mindful, to use a common phrase now. So that one actually did maybe give me pause, actually. So then I got an F3, and I was, for a bit, more sensible. You always are when you first get back after an accident. Then I was a bit of a dick again, but I didn't crash that one, and then I ended up with the F4 fuel injected.
Right. Okay.
That was
so what were the main differences then between the F2, the F3, and the F4? The F4 was obviously the first.
The suspension was much better on the F4. I seem to remember that actually had can't remember they're telescopic, but they were definitely better suspension than the F4. The F2 was much more primitive. I mean, had regular forks and all the rest of it. It was still great, and you could feel it getting sportier. Not crazy. It still wasn't like the double R, which I never rode, but you could, the bowler counts that is definitely track focused. And it was still really high revving. I mean, massive red line. You had to really throttle its neck to make it go quick. But it was iterative. Apart from the fuel injection was a bit more obvious, but it was iterative rather than revolutionary each time in the F3. But I think when they came out with the RR, that was their revolutionary take on it.
Yeah, they broke the mold, didn't they? That was what, 2004, 2003, 2004.
About then, yeah. I think that's roughly when they stopped doing the F. Although they brought it back, I think.
And it was sort of billed as almost as a replica of the MotoGP bike of the time. And I do remember it in it beautiful sort of red and black traditional colours, and it's still iconic today. And I think the new CBR 600 that they released last year, I think they wanted to keep some of the styling cues from the original CBR 600RR. So, for example, sort of behind the rider seat, you've got those two little triangles of mesh in the fairing, which was on the originals, and classic bike.
And it's got the underseat pipe.
Yes.
Yeah, which I've always quite liked. I mean, some people hate them. I've always quite liked them. Maybe because I've got a soft spot for the Honda 600s, but
I like them on the Hondas. The only bike that I didn't really like the underseat pipes, because I liked them on the R1 or the previous R1. I like them on the Hondas. It was the the Kawasaki ZX-10, I think it was around 2007 or 2008. So they put the under-seat exhaust, but the whole back end of it just looked fat. You know, I personally, I know it's all subjective, but personally, I didn't like the under-seat pipes on that one. But yeah, on the Fireblades and the Cigars, yeah, gorgeous.
Actually, that's an interesting point about the Fireblade. Going back to the original Fireblade, the 900. When I passed my test, I say, you know, I got a CBR 6. A lot of people think now, well, that's crazy. I could have gotten a CBR 900. Actually, I wouldn't be able to afford it. But even if I could, even if I could have afforded it, I wouldn't have gotten that 900. I remember my mindset that day. Yeah. That bike scared me, the 900. Yeah. The Fireblade just scared me. Even the name of it was kind of scary, right? So even though I could have, even if I had the money, I would not have bought that 900 at that stage. And later on, I didn't have the money either. So it didn't make no difference. But because you see in America, obviously, these kids, 17, get up buying S1Ks, presumably with their parents' money, and then just coaching themselves.
We get it a lot, don't we? So in the so those who watched on YouTube, I've got the TikTok channel as well, and I run regular TikTok lives, and lots of people will come in, and it is often people from across the pond.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will say things like, "Is an S1K a good starter bike?" You know,
and the thing is, no. So much of it is it's got to be social media, right? Because going back to what the CBR 6 versus a Fireblade in the 90s, there's no one around going, get a Fireblade, you know, watching, you read a magazine, you know, whatever, and you see it, it'd be great, and they'd all say, this is bonkers. They wouldn't say, you, 18-year-old, go and buy a Fireblade. Whereas now, they'll watch TikTok, they'll watch YouTube, etc., and there's people encouraging them to do it. So you can't, I can see that peer pressure for teenagers.
I think social media definitely does have an effect. But I think I think it's even more dangerous nowadays than it used to be, even though bikes have got electronics. Well, some of them have, you know, got electronics and your safety features. And as you know, I did a video talking about this. And I think the electronics are very good for what they are, for the most part. There are some exceptions. Very good for what they're intended to be in terms of keeping a bike going forward as fast as possible, which is what they're designed for. Maybe with the exception of ABS, which is a safety feature. But they're just, people have or I've heard people have the perception that, oh, it will stop you from having an accident, but it absolutely won't. And then when you consider that bikes have got, well, 200, this stock is 213 horsepower stock, although this is not, and we'll get into that. And the S1K is about 206, and you just think, why would you do that? And if you go back, you know, 15, 20, 30 years, 140, 150 horsepower from a litre bike.
Exactly.
But I guess the other side of the coin is no electronics, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I would have, like you, learned about traction control by the feeling the back end going out.
Yeah.
And hence learning that you've got traction control with your right hand, basically.
I've got half a forest on my arm.
Just welcome to my garage.
That makeup department is getting fired. She's getting fired. It's fascinating how bikes have changed, I think, and it's almost like we've had, you know, two curves where power and performance has gone up, and risk has gone up because of it, but then electronics have came into play and maybe reduced the risk slightly, but then that allows power to go even further up. And it's fascinating.
And then you've got all the Euro stuff, trying to choking it and then overcoming that.
Yeah.
It is interesting how it all works. And most of it, like certainly for sports bikes anyway, is trickling down from MotoGP to a degree.
Yeah.
The electronics anyway, and the rider aids that they have, which you need. I mean, those bikes are insane. I don't think you could do what they do on those bikes without the things that they have, and they're the first to admit it.
And this is the biggest thing about it's like anything, isn't it? You don't know what you don't know until you start learning, and then you realise what you don't know and what you're going to have to learn. And you do get a lot of newer riders through no fault of their own, but they just don't realise what it takes to be able to ride a bike like this, or even an older litre bike. And it's not that it would be difficult to ride from A to B, because it wouldn't. You know, if you can ride a 600 from A to B, you can ride 1,000 from A to B. But it's the learning curve, isn't it? Because if somebody jumps straight onto something like an S1K, it's not a learning curve, it's a cliff face. And actually there's going to be a point soon in that learning journey that you stop learning and all you end up doing is sort of crash management.
Yeah, you're basically learning not to crash, not learning to ride a bike. And I really believe that. And I remember when someone told me once, they said the big difference when you go from, even from a 600, because I remember telling the time, up to a proper litre bike, even back in the day, the speed at which you can accelerate means that the information, you're used to gathering information at a certain pace, bus, junction, whatever, flies at you and past you so much more quickly. Your brain needs to really adjust, or you're going to come across that. And even now, like this year, I think, or this winter, like last winter, I was on the bike quite often. You know, 30th of December 2024, I was riding. There was a couple of days towards the end of January. There was a couple of days in February. But this time round, it's been the longest period I've had off the bike. I think because I bought the Ducati. I bought my Ducati 1st of November. Ridden it a couple of times, but nothing serious, nothing in anger really. And then haven't had a chance since. And when you have a period off the bike, like you were saying, you know, you have to recalibrate your brain. You get back on the bike and you need to get used to taking in that information again. I think and that's the same if you've been riding 5 minutes or 50 years. You know? Well, they've documented it, haven't they? The massive spike in accidents at the beginning of the season. Right? People haven't been, especially if they haven't been at all for like 4 months, 5 months sometimes, which is fine. I'm not criticising that, but they get back on the road, and if they don't realise, take it easy for a few days, relearn it in a way, get your brain, synced with what you need to be doing. Then you can have an accident, and it does happen. It does get a spike. That's why I've got the Suzuki, which I try and get out in winter whenever possible, partly because of that. Partly because this helps, just generally. But see, not so bad. So where did you go after the 600s then? So then I had a break because got married, and it's not always compatible. And then went overseas, and I'd also moved to London, and biking in London is even before the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits and speed cameras, it's just not much fun, and you get nicked even back then. Now it's almost like stealing. Went overseas, and so while I was overseas, I had a brief stint with a CV500, a late 90s, as a run around, and then a Vespa, much to, I'm sure, a lot of people's horror, maybe not Mike's, but I had a Vespa for a while, got knocked off that. But where I was in the tropics, so it was stinking hot. And you could wear leathers, but you would be melting. It was really uncomfortable, super, super uncomfortable, so I didn't carry on the CB500. Most people there would be in shorts and a t-shirt, which I'm not going to do. So I saw like in Cyprus, I saw a guy riding around on an R1 in shorts and a vest. Yeah, it's bonkers. Same in Athens. I took my son to Athens for his 18th, and everybody nobody was wearing gear at all. I mean, most of them weren't on sports webs, but some were. It's in the city. I mean, it's just. It was stinking hot. Don't get me wrong. I get it, but there comes a point where I'd rather be sweaty than have no skin left. But each of their own. So then, when I came back to the country, my son got his Lex Moto. Now, at this point, I probably hadn't ridden for about 6-7 years, maybe 8 years. Okay. And as soon as I saw him, it got delivered here. It's just like that. I've got what am I doing? I've got to get a bike right now. So I thought I'm not going to go straight back to a sports bike, even the 600. So I got Suzuki SV 650. Great little bike. Really, it's superb, especially for anybody. For a beginner, I think it's really achievable. If you want a bit of fun on the B roads, it can be a hell of a lot of fun. It's great in the bends. A lot of people love them, don't they? Yeah. A lot of people convert them into track bikes as well. There was a whole class of SV 650 track racing, and there are people on your lives that still do that in the US and so on. So I really enjoyed that. The SV, really enjoyed it. You have to really think about overtakes and things like that. It's not like any 650. It will. It's still quicker than most cars, but you do have to think about it. But all my life, since I was, first into bikes, I'd be scared of height, but you open a magazine, ever since the 916 came out, which is probably a bit of a cliche, but yeah, ever since it came out, I've just loved Ducatis all my life. Never ridden one before, but always loved.
The 916 was the centerpiece in a bike magazine.
Yeah.
A typical poster bike, wasn't it?
100%.
And just go back to the SV briefly. I'll probably overlay some pictures of the SV actually, because your SV looks awesome.
Yeah.
The blue frame and it looks fantastic. So I'll put some pictures up. But so you got the Ducati bug then.
Yeah. I've always had it.
Yeah.
But I've never remotely had the money to buy one, unless I wanted to buy an absolute bag of bolts. As we all know, you don't buy a bag of bolts Ducati because it's just costs you more money than anything. And so I started looking at. I think I was initially looking at either at 1098 or 1199, something like that. Yeah. And then a friend of mine from Tunbridge Wells called me up. He said, "Hang on a second. Come and see this bike that's been sitting in this garage opposite my workshop, obviously it's my shop, for a while, and it was a 959. And he said it was on for it's on for a certain price. He said, but I know the guy who's selling it. He will take 30% less because he just wants it because he wants to buy a house.
Yeah.
And so I went to see this night. It's a 2018 white, beautiful Arctic white.
It's gorgeous.
It really was. Yeah. The guy had spent a fortune. So he put a full acro on it. He'd put carbon all over the place. He changed out. You've got amazing super lightweight wheels, Brembo M50s. You name it. The list is endless. What the guy had done to it. It had just over 2,000 miles on the clock because it'd been sitting in his garage for 2 years unused.
Yeah.
Because he had done all this to it and then decided he was too scared to ride it, which is fine.
And to be honest, it's quite often that you do see a lot of expensive Ducatis that might be 6-7 years old with almost no mileage.
Yeah.
Because why would you want to take a bike like that out in the shitty weather? You just wouldn't want to do it, would you? So you do see a lot. And I remember when we were chatting and you were searching for your next bike, which wasn't going to be this.
No.
And we saw a few of what was going to be your first choice, but the mileage was amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing mileage. Yeah.
A lot of them don't get ridden for various reasons. I think some people just put them in their living room and just look at them, and I wouldn't. I think they're there to be ridden.
Yeah.
Maybe not as commuter bikes, but
I'd do that though. If I had a couple of bikes and enough money, then I mean I would. Whether my lady would agree to that is another question. But
there's no doubt some of them are absolutely stunning. This one, the 959, was a stunning bike.
Yeah.
Although you hated the seat, obviously you've done the video on that bike. Yeah. So
which is on the channel, folks. It's available on the channel.
Yeah. So you can see that being ridden. And Al complaining.
That seat was sadistic, though.
It was.
It was like, I think I described it as something out of a Saw movie.
Yeah.
It was like you get on the bike and the bike says, "I want to play a game."
Yeah.
And
pretty medieval. But,
it was.
But I love that bike. I really loved it. I had so much fun on it. Took it to track day. Took it to all over the country. Yeah. Really, really enjoyed it, and it was flickable. It really went when you wanted it to. Yeah. It was great. It felt very light. It felt and very sort of live. And I really, really thoroughly loved it. And then one day, I realised that my biking history seems like a sequence of accidents, but there was another one. So
I remember actually. I remember because we were friends then when that happened. And I was shocked. I remember when you told us, and obviously our first concern was, how's the bike?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Well, I was on my way actually to Tunbridge Wells to see the guy, just a social visit, and it was I think at the B Road. Anyway, it came up with a road closed sign.
Yeah.
So I stopped the bike, got off. Back then I smoked, so I had a cigarette. But I was thinking, do I turn around and go back up this road? I'm working out in my head. And then someone came up in a Land Cruiser down this lane that was next to the road close sign and said, "You're right." Nice of the I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just working out in my head which way to get to Tunbridge." "Oh, you can take this road here. It'll take you straight round." And I said, "Is that on the bike?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, you'll be fine." But so that was, So I should have thought that. And I was going down this lane and it got progressively worse and worse and worse and more agricultural.
Yeah.
Not just like grass in the middle, but really just like that. and I wasn't going that fast as a result. I rounded a corner and a fox ran out, and I instinctively did the worst. Instead of target fixating, which I should have done, and just hit the damn thing, swerved to the left and went into a rut in the road. And once you're in one of those ruts, you cannot, it's deep enough, couldn't get out. And it pushed the bike on top of me, and because the camber of the road was like that, the bike came down completely on top of me. And
because you broke your collarbone, didn't you?
Broke my collarbone to 3 different pieces, 10 ribs, and a collapsed lung. Wow. Is what happened then, which is really annoying. But I managed to get emergency service to come and pick me up, which was good, and also managed to call my mate at the same time to come and pick the bike and make sure that was all right. Luckily, it wasn't that badly damaged because, as I said, it wasn't going that fast. And then ended up in hospital for a couple of weeks because I got pneumonia from the collapsed lung and all that crap. But it did make me give up smoking.
Yeah, every cloud.
Yeah. So there's that. And I got the bike completely fixed. All it needed was a new clip on, and then I had to get the fairings redone.
I remember that took a while, didn't it, to get the fairings redone?
Yeah, it took ages.
It was a respray, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a body shop. And they specialise in auto, quite high end, especially given the price they charge. Quite high end respraying, treating with not PPF, but something else they've got, which they split in with, all that kind of stuff. And they do it generally exotic now. But I knew them already, which is why I went there. And they took ages. But then I didn't ride for probably 2 months, whatever it was, 2.5 months, because the collarbone, I re-broke it.
I remember you were dying to get back out on the bike, and I think
because it was the best spring ever. It was April time.
It was bad timing for the accident, and didn't you? If I remember, didn't you sort of start sneaking out on the bike a little bit before before the doctor said you should?
I did. The problem with that, and I would just for the record, I don't advise people do that because your insurance is almost certainly invalid. If a doctor said don't ride and you go out and ride, your insurance company will use that and say you're not covered. And the doctor actually did tell me that as well. So
do as we say, not as we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Stay in school and say no to drugs.
Oh god! But I was so happy remember that.
Yeah, it did seem like a bit of a long recovery.
It was, yeah.
And then you got back on the bike, and we went for a ride a couple of times, and wasn't it you had to give the bike back to Ducati? We won't say which dealer. So your 959 had to go back to Ducati. Was it a service?
Yeah, it basically,
and that's where a whole lot of hassle started, really.
Yeah. So we went into Ducati for an annual service because I thought I'd take advantage of. In the winter they do it like a penny a part. So oil costs a penny, fluids cost a penny, that kind of thing. And it was a very reasonable price for them to come and pick up the bike because the weather was terrible, and take it into their shop.
Just touch on that for a second, actually, because I didn't know they did this, and there might be many people watching that aren't aware of this. But it's a shame other manufacturers don't do it. Maybe they do. I don't know. I've never really used main dealers, but so each part is a penny, and you pay for the labour, basically. Yeah. So if you is there a limit though? Because if it needs new throttle bodies,
exactly. There is a limit. Right? It'll be for the regular whatever you would normally. Yeah, exactly. Whatever you would normally pay in the service is a penny a part.
Yeah.
And they do it. I think they start sort of end of October, beginning of November, run it through to maybe the first or second week in January, because that's when people aren't doing it. Most bikes are sitting in the garage. They want to keep, and they're not selling bikes.
It's a good idea.
And they want to keep money coming in, cash flow. And so, it is a good idea. And then that's why they also do the whole pick your bike up thing, because you have to pay a bit, but not much. Because the people that want to attract aren't using their bikes. Right? They're not going to be getting on their bike and riding it.
Exactly.
So it went in, and it was just taking a bit longer and everything. And then I got an email saying, was this bike mapped? And I thought, well, of course it was. It's got a full Acra system and all the rest of it. And I said, right, do you have the map? I was like, no, I don't. We'll get back to that in a bit. But anyway, so this went back and forth, went for a long time. I said, well, guys, and they deleted the map by plugging in the diagnostic for the bike. And I subsequently talked to them at length about this. It just automatically deletes any map that's on there. Yeah. And they can't reverse that. And the map was singular to that bike, and even though it was a very well-known type of map, the Tier 100, I think is that map, but it was very specific to that bike. Anyway, so it was, you remember, it was about 2 or 3 weeks of backwards and forth like this. Who's been responsible? I don't know.
You showed me some of the emails, and I mean, I can see both sides. I think, where I land on the same side as you. At the end of the day, you put your bike into a reputable dealer, a very expensive reputable dealer, and I think you're right. They should spot that there is a chance this bike is mapped. Let's check with them first. And at least if they'd have given you a call and said, look, the only way we can plug this in and do the updates is if we wipe the map, or at least then give you a chance to get the map to them so they can refit it. But they seemed desperate to wash their hands of it, didn't they? I think, and you can see that the other side of the fence is that, well, they do that anyway. That's just what they do. They plug it in, they do the updates, and they can't control the fact that clears the map. So I don't know. I can see both sides, but as a customer,
that's
you would think, hang on a minute, my bike was in this condition, in this state when I dropped it off. We've had no conversation with me, and I've now lost the mapping that was on there. So from a customer's point of view, I think, there should be a leg to stand on.
Yeah, I mean, I lost that battle, but they have been subsequently very, very good, I will admit. And I had, as I said, I had long conversations with the mechanics, and I saw their point of view, and they were very full and frank about it. And then, so I had to get it remapped and pay for remap. And then, because I'm a complete clown, I found the map. In the one place I hadn't looked for it.
I remember the message. So Dave messaged me after all of this happened, and he'd got paid for the remap and everything, like he said. And then I got his text message, and he said, guess what? I found the map.
It's in a box, which is actually behind the bike at the moment, that contains the link pipe for the 959. And I just thought, oh no. And I remember looking at the box, coming into the garage, looking at the box, thinking, surely not. And I opened it up, there it was, sitting there staring at it. I was like, God, are you kidding me? Anyway.
My initial reaction when I got that message was, oh, no way. And then after that, I laughed.
Exactly.
I did laugh a little bit.
It's just stupid behaviour by me. Clearly financial acumen is not my strong point, well, obviously. But anyway, so while all this was going on, this is because I think it was weeks, right, that it's back and forth. And so I'd go into a shop and then I started just, I don't know, left me feeling dissatisfied just with the whole situation.
Yeah.
So then I started looking. I think I started looking at. I thought, why don't I just get a V4? But I'll get an old, 18 or 19 one, sensible one. Not that they are sensible, but so I'm looking at Auto Trader and different dealerships across the country. I arranged to go and see one in Ipswich, I think it was. That was a private.
I remember, yeah. And the guy wasn't very communicative, was he?
No, he messed me around. So ultimately, I just sat that off. And then I arranged, I can't remember, Ducati North London or something. I contacted them and said, they have a second-hand one. So I said, can I come and have a look? And they went, yeah. And then I thought to myself, hang on, there's a closer one to me. I'm not going to say where it is, but there's a closer Ducati dealership to me. So I went in there. And I was looking at the V4, and then I saw this. And the guy was like, yeah, that's pretty special, isn't it? I said, it is. I said, it is. So it was, and I looked at it, and he said, yeah, it's a bit too much for the road. It wouldn't be, it's got dry clutch and blah, blah. And he sort of like, I said, yeah.
Do you think they tried to upsell you into this?
No,
was there a little bit
they
of
didn't, because it's exactly, the price is almost exactly to the pound what I would have spent on a new... the newer V4 that I was looking at, the stock 2025, 26 one. All way too much on both counts, right? But and don't get me wrong, I can't afford it. This is financially idiotic. But anyway, so I looked at the new V4 and I sort of looked at that and I thought it's gorgeous, isn't it? But then I looked at the V4R next and thought that's gorgeous too, and sort of packaged them as like, that's just stupid. Why would they do that? And I went home and I went back the next day. And I looked at it again. I took my son and I looked at it again. I couldn't stop thinking about this bike. That's not to say the new V4 isn't great, but I just could not stop thinking about this bike. And as you said, you just don't see them.
No.
So I went back
I don't think I've seen. I can't remember. Maybe I've seen one or two, but I just can't remember having seen them.
I've seen a Street Fighter SP.
Definitely not seen one
but I've not seen
Bike Me.
Not seen a Panigale. I saw a Street Fighter SP at the track that day I went to. And that was pretty special. But not the Panigale. So I went in with my son, and then he was just like, "That's a bike." And of course, when your son tells you that,
yeah,
God.
I'm laughing as well because I remember the conversations that we were having, and this is why I said early on in the video that I feel quite invested in this, because we were having conversations, and I think what you were probably doing is just using me as a sounding board to map out your thoughts. What do you think about the V4 versus the SP, or sorry, the V4S versus the SP, and do you think it's worth it, and etc. So we were having some conversations about it, and I don't think I swayed you either way, but I think.
Well, no, I think you probably did. If you turned around and said, "Don't be a dick, do not buy the SP," then I probably would have really paused.
Yeah. I don't think I'd ever say that. I mean,
no one did.
Yeah.
That's something.
Could you ever? No. I mean, the fact that they were the same price actually.
Yeah.
So this was the same price, sorry, because this was, what's the mileage on this? When you
about 7.5.
So 7,500 miles. It's 2021 versus was it a brand new SP or a year old?
It was the latest model, and it was an ex demo, and it's done 480 miles.
Oh, right, okay. So it's the same price. So I think overall, if you're getting for the same price you were going to pay anyway, to get something as special as this and as rare, and I know like we touched on the fact that I feel it as quite rare, but I think it is rare.
I think it is as well, and it's had everything done to it.
Yeah.
Right. So the V4S was absolutely stock. Every single bit was stock. I mean, the V4S has got nice O-lins and all the rest of it, but it's still got that horrible underpan exhaust rather than an Acura or anything like that. There was no carbon on it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you need carbon, but whoever had this before has gone to town with the bits that weren't already carbon. He's added carbon bits to it. So a lot was nice stock, so the wheels, the carbon wheels are stock, etc. But you put the bigger screen on, stuff like that, which I would have wanted to do on a V4S, but having spent that kind of money, would not have had the money to do it. There's no way I could buy the V4S and an Acura.
Yeah.
There's just no way on earth.
And even if you did over time, it would take some time to get all of the parts that you want to get and get them fitted. And so it makes perfect sense. And I know you say it's financially it's a big hit, and it is for anybody, I think, unless you've got millions and millions in the bank. But to buy it and say, well, it's done. There's nothing that you need to do, apart from just normal maintenance and a couple of little bits. Nice red oil cap that you were talking about earlier, which it needs. I don't know why you haven't bothered doing it.
I know, I'm terrible.
It's so slow without it.
Yeah.
But no, I get it. And it was the same when I bought the Gixxer. I saw it, and it had, the aftermarket full exhaust system, the quick shifter, the Brembo master cylinder. It had everything and more that I would have done to it anyway. I've still spent a fortune. I don't know how, but that happens, does it?
It does.
But no, I completely get it. And as a package, even in stock form, it would have been an amazing bike.
Yeah.
But as a package with everything that is on it,
exactly,
it's just beautiful. It's just stunning. I mean,
because it's got the full system. It's got the full active system. It's got carbon everywhere. He's done. I mean, they're not my favourite, these Rizoma things, but if you're going to put these stealth mirrors on, you might, it's nice that you spent 500 quid putting those ones on.
They are the genuine Rizoma ones.
Rather than the teeny ones and the indicators and so on, the teeny Rizoma indicators. Yeah. Again, rather than teeny ones.
They're awesome.
They're really good, aren't they? The only thing is that we discussed, I'm going to change that fuel cap because you put the Rizoma fuel cap on, which I have an absolute hatred for.
Yeah.
Can't stand it. It looks great, but why have a keyless fuel cap that needs its own key?
Yeah.
It
just defeats the object. Yeah. It's very that is very Ducati.
It is.
Give you a special key for your keyless fuel cap.
Their new Multistra's got keyless fuel caps.
Right.
But you don't need anything. But it will only remain available to open for about 2 minutes after the bike is turned off.
Oh, right.
And then it automatically locks to stop people nicking your fuel up, right? Which I thought was quite a clever idea.
Yeah. It's sort of similar to the way a lot of cars work, isn't it? That makes sense. No, it's good. And so we're gonna change the fuel cap, and we're gonna set the preload and sag on the suspension, and fit your new completely legal number plate.
It's actually the number plate that was on it when I first saw it. And then what the dealership did when they gave it a fresh MOT is put the regular big number plate, which is on at the moment, which I know you have to do for the MOT along with the little reflector and things like that. So obviously the first thing.
I've always gone away with it.
Really?
I've always got away with having the. So I run a 7x5 plate, always have, and I've never ever had to put the original back on.
I think they're quite finicky.
It depends who you take it to.
It's because I think it's because it's the main dealership.
Yeah.
They're probably maybe they're not. Maybe they are idiosyncratic, but they've done it. They also did it for actually when I had the Suzuki done, they put the reflector on.
Yeah.
Insisted on that, but that Suzuki's got a regular plate on it anyway. It hasn't got a fancy plate on it.
So you ended up with a bike that you were never supposed to get in the first place.
Yeah.
Because you were going to buy a V4S.
Yeah.
You've ended up with a much better bike.
Yeah.
Just an absolutely stunning, gorgeous bike. And I'm not sure what I'll do in the edit actually, whether I'll put some pictures of this, close-up pictures at the beginning or at the end. Sounds amazing. But I mean, I think when we were chatting the other day, you were saying that we were talking about what Ducati is and what Ducati is nowadays compared to what Ducati used to be. But I think having a Ducati or owning a Ducati is either something that some people will never want anyway because they don't like the brand.
Yeah.
It will maybe something that people would love but could never afford to. And for some, it's something that people aspire to and they eventually get. And it's that it's not just for the bike for what it is, because it's an amazing bike, but it's that sense of ownership as well. So what would you say it is for you? Like,
I think I'm
having this in your going through that journey, having the Hondas, the Suzuki, the 959, and then eventually jumping on an SP. What does this all mean to you?
This to me is the pinnacle of motorbike ownership. To me personally, there'll be people out there, like you said, who will disagree with me 100% and think that anyone who rides a Ducati is either a poser or whatever. I don't care what they think. I love it.
Yeah.
Ducatis have always been sort of apex for me, and I've always wanted one. Never been able to have one until I got the 959. And then when you see this, I just fell in love with it immediately. I opened the door of the garage, and we discussed this before buying it, and it's just a grin for me to it.
Yeah.
It really, really is. And then I do think, in terms of engineering, they are almost unsurpassed. Of course, an S1K is brilliant, a Gixxer 1000 is brilliant, and all the rest of it. And yes, you're paying more for this. You're paying for that ownership, as you say, and it counts. It does feel like something.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest with you, but a lot of it is intangible.
Yes.
So, and a lot of it can be criticised by random people, and I get that. I totally get that.
But it is special because, and like I say, when you touch on the engineering, we've had conversations about things like the counter-rotating crankshaft because. And I think Ducati, as a manufacturer, and you see this in MotoGP, they've almost dared to do something different, haven't they? And even when you go back to the days of the 916, they just dare to do something slightly different. And I'm glad that they've still got that. I don't know whether that's their ethos as such, but it's just part of who they are. They want to be different. They want to do something that other manufacturers aren't necessarily doing, or at least not doing often.
Well, even the stuff that we don't necessarily buy into. So the new V2s, for example, that are now across a whole bunch of their different bikes. So the new Panigale V2, Multistrada V2, Monster V2 now, and one other Street Fighter V2. Massively down on power from the prior iteration, massively lighter. And on paper, it shouldn't work. Apparently it does. I'm still not 100% convinced because I've not ridden one. All the pundits love it, don't they? And they love that V2 engine, but it's hugely down on power.
Yeah.
And they all say, probably not to piss Ducati off too much, if you're used to, the older Monster or the older Street Fighter, you will take some getting used to the fact that it's not as powerful, blah, blah, and play it down. But come on, either way, it's a bold move by Ducati to sort of do that.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced by that particular direction. But
we were chatting, weren't we, about the current sort of crop of middleweight super sport bikes, which for me, they're not really super sport bikes. But I'm wondering whether manufacturers it's because they've been forced down that route, or whether it's just generally the things have evolved and that's what they are.
It's a bit of both, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people, the average age of people riding bikes is getting older, partly because of the barriers to entry when they're young, and that's a whole different conversation.
That's a big part of it. I'll touch on that because there's links there to license reform, and I did a bit of research earlier on in the week actually, and yeah, I'll get into that. But yeah, sorry, carry
on. And I think the people my age often don't want to get on something like this, not because of the power, but because of the riding position. Their wrists hurt, their hips hurt, their legs hurt, etc. I'm lucky in that I don't find sports like that uncomfortable. Yeah, after 2 hours, of course, I'm aching a bit. But, well, you won't get 2 hours without refueling on this thing anyway. But that's the other thing, apparently, the fuel range of these is just diabolical.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You look at the reserve lights coming on at 80 miles.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you're not. It's a bit of a pain.
Well, our trip to Germany.
Yeah, exactly.
But touching back on comfort, I mean, you're right. Sports bikes are sports bikes.
Yeah.
They're not designed for comfort, and some people can't really get on with them. But having said that, a lot of people do say that Ducatis, like the Panigale, for example, are actually quite comfortable as far as sports bikes go.
Yeah, they're roomy, aren't they?
Well, yeah, and we were saying that when because this is the first time I've seen this close up. The tank's quite long, the bars are quite sort of wide and angled out a little bit, so you get less of a sort of crunched in position, more of a elbows out position, not quite obviously as you do with a naked bike. But yeah, a lot of people say that the Panigales are actually quite comfortable.
Yeah, especially compared to the new Fireblade, for example, which is much more compact in terms of riding position and really simple. I think they're fine. And yeah, I mean, of course, you're not going to be as comfortable as a cruiser or God forbid a GS or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are put off by just the sports position, and I think they've made the new super sports, if you like, a bit like sports tourers in a way.
Yeah.
In terms of it's trying to appeal to a broader spectrum of people.
I think they're a little bit soft, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they're a little bit soft sometimes in their riding position and their ergonomics, but I think also in power and torque.
Yeah.
It's like I was saying the other day, I don't think they are in the same class as Gixxer 750s, ZX7Rs, the proper, and even the 600s, I'm just going to check my battery actually as well. But even, the 600s, they're just not in the same class. There's definitely something missing, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But, but I think a lot of it is because of Euro emissions. We've got, like I said to you in a message yesterday, we've got people in Brussels who will probably never ride a bike in their life, have made some pretty significant decisions that has affected everybody that rides bikes.
Well, exactly. And not only in terms of the evolution of certain bikes, some bikes just don't get made anymore, purely because of emissions changes. So the SV650 is a classic example. Yes, they're coming out with a new S7 whatever, but the SV650 is dead in the water because of Euro emissions. A number of bikes have gone that way. That just aren't around anymore. The old CB500, that's went away because of that. A whole bunch of them. And that's a shame, because I'm no scientist, and I'm sure there'll be lots of people saying you don't know what you're talking about. But I'm willing to bet that emission scores on motorcycles are pretty minuscule compared to a steel plant or a dot in China or cars or whatever. But
there's a group called MAG, Motorcycle Action Group. I don't know if you've heard of them. Yeah. And they were talking about, they've done research and basically said that it's been, and I don't know the exact research that was done, but their words were something like, it has been demonstrated that motorcycles are more efficient than electric cars. And actually, that's a nice little segue. If we can just touch on that briefly. So there's two lobby groups that I'm aware of. So there's Motorcycle Action Group, and then there's the Motorcycle Industry Association.
Oh, I don't know that one.
And the MCIA, the Motorcycle Industry Association, they do a number of things, road safety campaigns for motorcyclists and so on, but they also lobby government for legislation change. And apparently their plea to government recently about license reform was wrapped up in net zero ideas. And it was something like, they lobbied and said something like, we need complete license reform because we need to make it easier for more people to get into electric bikes. So it was like putting license reform in a package of, net zero, all these, what am I looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Climate change policies. And I'm like, that's just not the right way to go. License reform should not be about net zero. It should be about safety and getting more people onto bikes. Not getting more people onto electric bikes, because there's not a single biker I've ever spoken to that wants electric bikes. Let's face it.
No.
They've probably got a place. They will probably become more popular and more acceptable as the years go on. Like anything changes. But we just don't want it. We don't want to lose petrol engine bikes. We just don't.
Definitely not.
Unfortunately, I think the EU have started to reverse their.
The EU have. They still haven't
policy.
followed suit here, have they? But hopefully they will. Although there's something in the paper I didn't read the article this morning about one of the big car manufacturers that owns, I think, Fiat and a bunch of other different cars, who just totally reversed their electric policy. So we're not doing this anymore. We're just not. It's which is interesting because they've written off 22 billion or something.
It's interesting because Motorcycle Action Group (MAG), I watched some of their YouTube videos, and they were saying that they are also fighting for license reform to make it cheaper. I don't think it'll end up cheaper. I think it'll end up more cost effective. Nothing's going to end up. Nothing gets cheaper.
Well, partly because they don't want to, all the motorcycle instructors don't want to be out of pocket, right?
Yeah,
and I get that.
Exactly.
But
it should be more cost effective, hopefully, and it should be easier and simpler, maybe, for people to go through their license journey. And I think we both agree there needs to be a step system. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Something needs to be done in insurance, which is interesting because I haven't heard MAG talk about the insurance side of things yet. But that is one of the biggest barriers, isn't it?
100%. So, as you know, my son bought his Lex Moto was, I think, 1,900 quid. Had about 1,000 miles on the clock. Was 2021. Kept in this garage, which is locked. Very safe neighbourhood. Very little crime around here. Under 3,000 miles. And his cheapest quote we got from him was 2,300 quid for the first year, third party only.
Wow. That's just ridiculous.
I was dumbfounded because when I started, it was cheap, right? I could, with very little money, afford to insure a CBR6, and it was absolutely fine. I can't even tell you how much it was because it was that little. I mean, his insurance has gone down a lot for the second year. It's now 600 and something. Still, but it's ridiculous that you're paying more than the bike for insurance.
Something definitely needs to be done. It really does. And I think it's a bit of a poison chalice, though. I'm a little bit sceptical because if the license gets reformed and if things start getting better for motorcyclists, which of course we hope they do get better for bikers, but does that put us in the spotlight more? And therefore, does that also then bring more legislation that makes it harder for us to enjoy our bikes?
Well, it's a bit like the Lord of the Rings eye, isn't it? You don't want it focused on you too much. But then if more people get into biking, then the voice will be louder to combat if people start coming out them more, is what I hope anyway. Because so many people, when I started, I'm sure with you, so many teenagers had motorbikes.
Yeah.
And if you go to Europe, they still do.
Yeah, definitely. And, we'll see this year. So we're doing a Germany trip this year. So there's a few of us heading over there, and it's going to be amazing. But literally every road you're on, if there's a biker that goes in the opposite direction, they will wave. They will wave, or they will nod, or cars will more often than not move out of the way for you, even just pull over slightly. Just that little bit of courtesy, and it just creates this very friendly atmosphere. It also helps, I think, to stop people riding like idiots, on the road, because courtesy goes both ways. And I think when a lot of people are courteous to bikers, chances are bikers will be a lot more.
And vice versa as well, which is why I think it's worth encouraging bikers to be courteous and not smash wing mirrors and all the rest of it. But because it sort of comes back to bite us all, right?
So the bike then. So it is 213 horsepower stock. However, what's this packing?
Well, according to the dealership, I think they're probably overing it slightly, but they reckon with the full map and the full Acura 230, not at the wheel, at the crank.
Yeah.
I reckon, looking into it, probably closer to 225. Still abundant, more than I can ever use. Right? I'm not going to pretend.
But even if it was 225 at the crank, that's probably still about 210 at the wheel. It's normally about, you're talking, I don't know, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, 15 to between 10 and 20 horsepower loss.
That difference.
There's a percentage of about 15% through the drivetrain. So, you're talking about 210,
which is bonkers, right? I mean, it is bonkers. This goes to the fact that I think on this, rider aids probably are a good thing, because once you get to that, I mean, I'm not Marquez. I think I need traction control to a degree, and maybe not dialed up to the top, but it's nice to have that in the background, even if it's just for peace of mind, etc. But ABS, mixed feelings about it. But it's a powerful bike. Easily the most powerful bike I'll ride.
But it's got so much more than just traction control, hasn't it? So it's got traction control, but is it lean angle sensitive?
Yeah, it's got 6-axis.
Adjustable slide control.
Yeah, adjustable slide control. Wow. Wheel control, engine braking control. Yeah. Which always on Ducati is engine braking is pretty harsh on a lot of Ducatis. Even on the V4s, which it was on the 959 massively.
You dialed yours down a bit.
Yeah, massively. It was too much. And a lot of people do. I find, it's nice to have some there, but on the 959, say, when it was an issue, it was just way too much. It was just more. I can't remember what other modes it's got. It's got a lot of electronics that can lots of anti-wheelie. You also set the wheelie. Yeah. So you can say, in terms of, if you know which set, it doesn't say do this for 15 inches or whatever, but you can do it to a wheelie a certain amount. So there's wonderful wheelies you see on thing with the wheels held perfectly straight. That's usually because that's what they're doing. Yeah. Keep the throttle open.
Looks good on Instagram.
Exactly.
And probably feels really good.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. And the knowledge that you're not going to flip it probably helps. It doesn't require much skill. Right? You just throttle up. But yeah, it's got a lot going for it, as I said. Those ride aids will definitely come in handy, especially when I'm getting used to it. Yeah. I'll be honest. It does give me a security blanket, but it doesn't mean I still can't trash it if I was being a dick. I mean, that's the thing. But yeah, there's the slide control. I think would be really fun to try out on a track. But maybe not straight away in the rain.
Do you plan on taking it on a track?
I flip between yes, definitely, and that's just a stupid idea, because if I slide it, it's going to cost a fortune, and I haven't come down one with it. I am literally 50-50, because I'm definitely going to do some track days this year. The alternative is either to hire a bike, which is not cheap, but cheaper than replacing the fairings on this.
Because you took your 959 on track. That was part of the rapid training
exactly.
course.
So there was a track day involved in that, and it was so much fun. And you do pick up so much from doing track days, not least of which, and it took me a couple of laps to really follow their advice. Say on a straight, you'd be going, say, about 120, and say, right, you need to really grab the front brake, but massively grab it. You need to learn how quickly this bike can stop. So you've got ABS, you will not lock the front wheel. But it took me to before I had the courage to actually do what they were saying. And each time it did a bit more, then you realise, wow, this bike can stop really very, very quickly. And I think things like that and we don't practice emergency stops enough. That sounds quite naff, but I think that's one of the things they do is find out how quickly this thing can stop. And how far
when it's dry.
When it's dry. Exactly.
And I just noticed it's got the adjuster for the front brake, hasn't it, on the side? That's cool. That's pretty racy as well.
So I think those are stock actually. It's fully adjustable, but it hasn't got a brake lever guard, which is needed for the track. The problem with tracking this as well, I think it's too loud for most tracks.
That's a big problem.
It is.
I mean, well, let's face it, you have got some pretty sensitive people living near racetracks these days, haven't you? And they move near a racetrack and they complain.
So you get certain days where it's 98.
I think they're called Karens, aren't they?
They are always called Karens. It's
brilliant.
Because I think certain days now are 98 decibels. Those are quiet days. Others go up to 103, maybe 105. People can tell me. When I was talking to the mechanics about it in the dealership, it's got a little sticker on the side, and it says 106 decibels.
Right.
And I said, 106. I said, that's quite loud. Will that get past track? And they looked at me and said, mate, that's with the stock exhaust. You've got the full actor on it. It's a lot louder than that. It's like,
but it depends on when that's measured, doesn't it?
Because they have flyby, and then they have static and flyby. I think static's at 7,500 revs. And the flyby depends on, I think it's 50 meters. And just from researching, if you know what you're doing, you just ease off the throttle or go up a gear when you're going past the sensor. And you could probably get away with it. But the thing is, there's no track within two hours of here. So if you're going all that way,
Yeah.
you're spending that money. It's non-refundable.
Donington do noisy days, I think.
Even that's 105 tops.
Is it?
Yeah. Anglesey, I think, might do an unrestricted day, which is lounge you like. But it's very expensive.
That's because it's miles away from
it. It is miles away.
And they've got lots of really noisy planes up there as well.
Yeah. But, well, that's the thing about Donington, right? It's next door to an airport.
Yeah.
So motorbikes do loud, but a 747 is fine.
You would think that would be the most relaxed place, or one of the most relaxed places. But it would be good, I guess. It would be good to see
what it can do.
Yeah.
I agree.
And also to see what you can do on it.
Yeah.
And just push your limits a little bit, because
I would never get to the limits of what this thing can do. There's not a chance in hell I'll get even approaching it. But I mean, that's what it's built for. This is built for taking it on the track, right? It's quite single-minded.
Yeah.
So I should do. I mean, I think I'll probably end up going yes.
And the power, really, this is the thing with bikes. You know, people talk about and brag about having 200 horsepower plus, but when do you ever really use 200 horsepower? You don't.
No, exactly.
And even on a lot of tracks, you probably wouldn't really. I mean, you might you'll get use out of the power that it's got, but you're not going to spend much time at top end. You really not. But torque, I think, is where it matters as well. The power to weight ratio, torque. And this is probably, 123 thereabouts Newton meters of torque.
Good point. I don't know off the top of my head, actually. That's one thing I should know, shouldn't I? I don't know. It is light. It feels heavier than the 959.
Yeah.
And it probably is slightly, but not by much. I think it's 178 without fuel.
Yeah. And the weight might be distributed slightly differently as well. But yeah. And it is just stunning. It is stunning. Is it? So you mentioned about fuel. So the range is a little bit dodgy.
Yeah, it does.
It's a 17 litre tank.
No, 16.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it is thirstier than the 959. And of course, it depends on how you ride it. You know, and it's probably because it's a Ducati. Each one, the light comes on probably on the same bike on different models. It'll be a different time when it comes on because there's no fuel gauge clearly. Because no Ducati sportswear ever have a fuel gauge. Quite why but they don't. They never do. But then apart from the SV, I've never had a bike with a fuel gauge before. None of the CBRs didn't have it, so it doesn't really bother me. But a lot of people get really fixated on the fact that it hasn't got a fuel gauge and think that's how could you ride a bike?
I've never. No, tell a lie. My Kawasaki Z750 years ago, I bought that in. That was mid 2000s. That had a fuel gauge.
Right.
You can never really rely on them anyway. They're never 100% accurate.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
I just think a bike isn't about how many miles per gallon you get in, or and when it comes to planning your rides, well, you just stop every hour or so.
Yeah.
If you're doing a long journey.
Once you get to know the bike, you know. Roughly how many miles, and you get with your own particular style of riding, you know roughly how many miles it is before you have to stop and refuel, irrespective of the light. Yeah. And so you get a sense for it. And other times you think, right, I know I'm going to be doing a long trip, so even though I've got half a tank left, I'm going to top it up, and so on and so forth. So that doesn't bother me.
And you plan on keeping this long term then?
Definitely, 100%. Yeah. This is what my son called it. My final bike.
Yeah. This is your retirement.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still going to keep the SP is going to my son when he gets his A2.
Yeah.
If he gets his A2. And then I will get a winter bike, a cheap one. Yeah. Really not a Ducati, a really cheap one. Maybe an SP again, I don't know. Something like that. A naked E with something with a tiny bikini screen or something like that to keep the worst weather. But something I don't mind taking out when the roads are absolutely shit and it's slimy and all the rest of it. Because I like to ride through winter and keep on if I want to nip to the shops or whatever.
Makes sense. And talking about tracks, let's touch on MotoGP a little bit because and I'm sure many people who might watch this follow MotoGP as well. We've got not very many days until the new season. So to me, though, 2026 season is going to be really interesting, but for two reasons. One, I want to see if Marquez can get through a season without any serious injuries. And two, Top Rack. That is going to be really interesting. But having said that, I'm more looking forward to the 2027 season when everything changes in terms of bikes, the rules. I think off the top of my head, the rule changes are, so the tyre, it's going to Pirelli tyres. Yeah. All teams are going to have to share all data with all of the teams.
if I remember rightly from when I last read up. 100% biofuel. Ride height devices are banned. Aero is restricted, so it's still going to be there. Unfortunately, it's a necessary evil, I think, but it's going to be slightly slightly narrower. And of course, 850cc bikes, which would be really interesting, because I remember when they changed from 1000cc's, or sorry, no, 990s to, no, it was 1000cc's to 850 to 800 in 2008. I don't think it made the sport worse. I think it was brilliant. I think it was an amazing, really interesting change. So I'm looking forward to this. But I was watching a podcast, and they were talking about some of the rumours about riders and team changes. Now, this was really interesting. I don't know if you've heard these things. So Marc Marquez, apparently Ducati want to sign Marc Marquez for 2 years. A 2-year deal, and I think this is from 2027, or it might be from. Well, it must be because
he's already signed.
But the rumor is that Marquez is saying no. I either want a 1-year deal or 1+1, which means that at the end of the first year we could get out if we wanted to. And then to top all that off, apparently he's paying a little bit more attention to Honda to see how they're developing, because they're actually making some good improvements.
This winter they really have.
Yeah. So could we, by the end of, or by the start of 2028, could we see Marquez back in a Honda?
I can see him wanting to finish his career there, right?
Yeah, that would be a really nice ending to the fairy tale. And I sort of agree actually as well. The guys I was listening on the podcast, they were talking about the fact that, Marquez has always been so loyal to Honda up until obviously when he changed. And I think he changed for the right reasons. He went to Ducati for the right reasons. But it would be an amazing thing. It would be that, like I say, that fairy tale for him to end on a Honda.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Brilliant. And they were saying that he will retire if he maybe wins another 2 championships and he feels he can win it. He will stay. I don't think he will do what Rossi did.
No,
hang around for a while and just get less and less.
Also, I think his injuries played a big part in that. Yeah. He's spoken recently in the last few months about his body can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
Rossi didn't. I mean, no, Rossi broke his leg and a few other things, but Rossi wasn't as debilitated as Marcus had. His bones re-broken and moved around all the rest of it. Yeah. I just think physically, he's like, I'm not putting up with this if I'm not winning.
No. And the other rumours were Alex Marquez maybe might look to KTM.
KTM, yeah.
Which makes sense because he needs to go to a factory team.
Yeah.
It's pointless him staying on a satellite team for another year or another 2 years. It's pointless. What else were they talking about? So
Acosta,
Morbidelli might not even have a seat.
Yeah.
Acosta, Ducati.
Yeah, Acosta Ducati with Marquez.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
He's not. I mean, he's an aggressive rider as well.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at Marquez and Bagnaia is quite smooth, a bit more calculated. I'm not saying Marquez isn't calculated, but on the surface of things, Marquez he'll put that bike where he wants it to be.
Yeah.
He'll squeeze up the inside. He's calmed down a lot in the last 2 years. I think he's had to, and he's sort of adapted his style. But traditionally, he's an animal on track. Now to have Acosta in the same team, who's also a bit of an animal, that would be fascinating.
Brilliant. Yeah. I love Acosta. He's fantastic. Yeah. Really, really good. And then they're saying Martin's going to leave Aprilia. I can't remember where they've got him going. Yeah, it wasn't a factory team, I think, or maybe it must be a factory team. Maybe it was Yamaha. Was it Yamaha to go alongside Top Rack?
That was it. Yeah, rumours he might go to Yamaha, which again would be interesting.
I can see Aprilia having limited patience with him, and he's always injured. As you know, I'm not a big fan of Martin, not because he's a great rider, as a human being, he's not the easiest person to like.
Yeah. He didn't do himself any favours, over the last. And I feel for him in a way as well because he won the championship. He'll always now forever be a MotoGP champion.
Yeah.
And when he was on track and then when he was on form, on the Pramac Ducati, he was, I wouldn't say unstoppable, but it was hard work for the other guys to be able to, outperform him. And to see those slow-mo shots of him scraping his whole arm on the curbs, it's just amazing. But I think that's all tainted now because of all the controversy that's happened between him and Aprilia. But I don't think he'll stay at Aprilia. I think it probably would be crazy to keep him because it would be commercially, it wouldn't make sense commercially to keep him.
No, I agree. And Bezecchi's really stepped up, right?
Yeah.
And I think I love him to bits. He's great.
Yeah.
You can't not like him. I don't get some of the. Was it Bezecchi with the wooden leg he was carrying around at the end of one ticket? Something.
Yes.
Yeah, I never got that.
Yeah.
But brilliant anyway. Yeah. Very Rossi-esque kind of thing to do.
And Quartararo, where did they say
Honda?
Might be Honda, yeah.
That's one of the sort of one that people are surest about is that he's pretty much going to Honda.
I mean, I think he's not masked some of Yamaha's problems. I think he became competitive in the last half of the last season, and he had some real sort of decent finishes. I think he had a couple of fifths and eighth. Did he have a fifth?
Yeah, and he would have won Silverstone except for the ride height device.
That's right.
Packing up a lap or two before the end.
But I think that was down to him, not necessarily just down to Yamaha.
No,
I think Yamaha is still struggling. And I think the recent tests have shown that they're still struggling as well.
Yeah, they're going to, and I think this year will be worse because the new V4 is just, they just chucked it together in the last 6 months, right?
And that's another reason why it's going to be really interesting what Top Rack can do, because Top Rack at the moment, I think he's still about a second off pace. Yeah. But that's not bad. That's not bad. And when Top Rack went from Yamaha to BMW in World Superbikes, so many people said it was a bad move because BMW were nowhere.
Yeah,
they just really couldn't win. They weren't competitive. He jumped on BMW, and he's two-time world champion. Yeah. So I'm wondering maybe, and I can't wait to see whether he can do something on that new Yamaha, because it'll be a V4 as well.
Yeah.
But that will be interesting.
I think certainly. If not this year, then because he's admitted over the weekend, hasn't he? He said at least for the first 5 or 6 races, he's going to struggle.
Yeah.
Because he's just basically the learning curve on matches like that.
Yeah.
But certainly 2027, that when everything changes, I think that's a real opportunity for someone with his talent.
Yeah.
As I said to you before, I just hope his fans don't turn up and start behaving like they did at the World Superbikes. But he's a hell of a talented writer. It'll be a really good season at 2027. I'm looking forward to this one too. Wasn't it a launch last night in Thailand?
Yes. No, I can't wait. And I can't wait till the start of our season where we can actually finally get out on the bikes. And
it's been a long.
It's just been horrendous. Yeah. It really has. And I can't wait until we can do part 2 of this video, folks. Yeah. So I think we'll probably wrap up there actually, Dave, because we've probably half the ladies and gentlemen that do watch to the end are probably asleep now. But so an absolutely stunning bike. I will put some shots in, some pictures in, and then when we get to film part 2, we'll be able to compare our thoughts. I'll do a ride. I'll take my camera with me, and I'll get to throw a leg over this beautiful machine and give you my thoughts. But it's absolutely stunning. And like I said at the beginning, I feel part of the journey for this.
Definitely.
To get this bike in this garage. But Dave, it's been absolutely fascinating, mate.
You too, mate.
I can't wait till part 2, and thank you very, very much.
My pleasure.